Thank you, Father Warner, Father Kelly, Father Gitter, Reverend Fathers, any honored guests, and of course, my dear brothers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Brothers, in my time here at SJV, the Lord has brought me through a journey of realization. I think that this beatitude really is not just a statement about who peacemakers are, but it's really a biconditional. It's a statement about peacemakers, but it's also a statement about who the sons of God really are. As we all know, a big part of our time here has been really learning about the Father's love for us, and that was no different for me. And a big place that the Lord has been bringing peace into my life has been in my reflections upon my time growing up, my time before seminary, my time of formation in the household, and all of the events that really have brought me here to this point now, where the Lord is trying to show me his love, where I'm trying to listen. In my time reflecting during our various holy hours, one of the memories that the Lord has brought up to me was very distant, hazy sort of thing that I've actually, for some reason, been able to get a lot out of. And I'd like to share it with you. Not just because it's important for me, but also because I think that it's an experience that all of us have had at some point, whether we remember or not. And I'm speaking specifically about the point when I realized that my dad was human. I was about 4, took me long enough. And as I said, the details are a little bit hazy, but I know 2 things for sure. One, he had just done something that I disagreed with. I don't even think it was wrong. It was just something that I didn't like. Probably told me not to do something or sent me to my room early, something like that. Again, I was 4. Give me a break. And I can remember the experience, can picture myself walking down the hallway to my bedroom and thinking about this, kind of roiling in the moment, being very upset. And I remember thinking, Daddy is wrong. And as I was going, this progressed to another statement. Daddy's being bad. Not a whole lot of philosophical terminology in a 4-year-old side. But what my reaction was to this moment is really what drove my prayer for so many holy hours. My reaction to this realization that my dad can err, that my dad isn't this omnipotent, omniscient force who can just come into the household and make everything okay, wasn't anger, it wasn't disappointment, it wasn't like some kind of self-righteousness like, oh, okay, I got one up on you. It wasn't anything like that. I remember that moment and I remember feeling very afraid, terrified even, that I'd come to this realization that I can't rely on my dad for some things. Now, obviously nothing against him. I love the man. He's legitimately, like, he is probably the most important man in my life at this point. Still, even being at college for 3 years, I look up to him greatly and I love him a lot. But he's human. And he'd be the first to admit that. I'm sure it's the same with all of your fathers too. And from this place of fear, of this realization that there's some things that I just can't rely on the people in my life for just because of sin, I can see that the Lord has brought me on a journey of rediscovery, to rediscover that childlike trust, that total abandonment that I'd lost in that moment. And I'm not there yet, but he's pulling me towards that point where I can say, Lord, I trust you in everything, unqualified. So from there, my life progressed in a pretty normal manner, I think. There were 3 things in my childhood and adolescence that were primo place in my life. The first was Scouts, so Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. I was active in that organization for probably 12 years. Made my Eagle Scout. It was a fantastic time, very formative time. I learned a lot about leadership, a lot about friendship. I learned independence and self-reliance. The second thing was school. School was very important to me. I love school still. Learning is a great joy of my life, and I can see the Lord really speaking to me in the truths that I learn about Him, especially about the faith. I was homeschooled all the way through. So my mother was my primary teacher, and my dad was the principal, which really meant if I didn't do my schoolwork by the time he got home from work, then that means I sat down with dad and we got it done. Yeah, it was a fantastic time. I love homeschooling. Uh, but yeah, that was another major area in my life. And then the third area was serving at the altar serving. This is also kind of ties up with my Catholic faith too. Uh, the first time that I served at the altar was 2 weeks before my first Holy Communion, and serving very consistently ever since. Um, More or less as the years go on, but consistently serving has always been an area where the Lord really spoke to me, gave me some structure, and really helped me to realize the beauty of our Catholic faith. And it gave me a way that I could serve Him in a tangible way. At the end of high school, once I got to that point, still hadn't quite made that agreement with the Lord that I could trust Him with everything, high schoolers. And at that point, I knew that my Catholic faith was important to me, but I didn't really know what to make of it. I knew that I wasn't as faithful as I could be. I was still struggling with sins, with self expectations, everything that I'd been trying to live up to that I couldn't quite meet. And at that point, as I was nearing the graduation period, I decided that I wanted to go to Christendom College in Virginia. Mainly because, one, it was a place with a fantastic community that I'd seen, and also because it was a place where I believed that I could really grow in my faith. Until God stepped in. At the end of January, I'd already submitted all my applications and I had been accepted. And at a youth group meeting, I was walking back to the church from our kind of external building where we had our meetings so that we could all pray together in front of the tabernacle. And as we were walking across, I got a little bit separated from the group, and I was walking next to the father who was helping out with our meetings. And as we were walking along in silence with the church, he turned to me and he said, "Hey, Dominic, have you ever thought of becoming a priest? I think you'd make a good one." And in that moment, I felt the most joy that I'd ever felt in my life. I think the only time that came close to that moment was my first Holy Communion. That's how much grace was just shot into my soul in that moment. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, why? Why now? Yeah. They don't teach you these things in your first 3 years, by the way. So where was I? Oh yes, grace, yes. So yeah, recap. Hey Dominic, want to become a priest? Joy. Why is this happening? And I remember in front of the tabernacle after that moment, I was praying and I essentially told the Lord, look, at this point, this is on you. Um, I didn't really pray about this. I didn't think about this option, but we've got like 4 months to figure this out. So this is going to have to be mainly, this is going to have to be mainly on you to get this thing worked out if you want me to go to seminary. And long story short, he did. I started going to spiritual direction with that father who had originally asked me, and he really helped me to grow in my spiritual life, grow in awareness, to the point that I reached the end of the summer and I realized that I don't think the Lord was calling me to college, even though I wasn't sure that He was calling me to seminary immediately. So I pulled out of Christendom about 2 weeks before the move-in day, which was also a very exciting time, and I ended up getting a job working at Chick-fil-A, which weirdly enough was very formative too in its own way. Sorry, I couldn't tell if the mic was on. Uh, yeah, Chick-fil-A was wonderful because I don't know, not just the discipline of having a full-time job, but also just the fact that there were a lot of very faithful Christians in the kitchen who were very interested in the fact that I was going to a Catholic seminary. So I got a lot of opportunity to explain my faith, and the Lord really grew with me during those 10 months or so that I worked at Chick-fil-A because I would go in, work, normally have some kind of conversation with somebody during the day, and then I'd go and pray a holy half hour in an adoration chapel before I went home. And in that time, I came to the realization that yes, the Lord is calling me to seminary. Okay, great. So I spoke with my vocations director. We got everything sorted, and we came here. It's a very quick rundown of that process, but that's kind of what it felt like. It really felt like once I opened the door to the Lord's grace, he really was the one who was delivering on his side of the bargain. Ask and you shall receive. I say, hey, do you want me to go to seminary? And he says, yeah, okay, go for it. All right, deal. In my time here, I think that that process that I mentioned at the beginning, the process of coming to trust in God more, to realize in his love and to really accept the fact that as his son, I can rely on him for everything, has been steadily increasing in really everything that's been happening here. I can see it in my classwork, knowing that there's a lot that I'm learning as a philosophy major that I can't rely on myself to understand. I can see it in the fraternity in the house. Coming from a homeschool family of 7 to a house of 100 men is a rather steep jump. In the first 2 weeks, I definitely did not understand what the heck introverts were doing, or extroverts were doing for that matter. Really, anyone. And I can also see it in the way that we've been pulled into a life of vision, a life of vision, a life of vision of the Lord. Because everything that we do ultimately has been drawn back to this realization that God is at the center. God is at the center of everything. This relationship that we have with him is at the center of everything. And the older I get, the more time I've spent here, the more I've come to realize that that's just true for every little bit of our life, whether it's waking up in the morning or whether it's going to classes or whether it's serving, cantoring, talking at midnight. Everything here is happening because he's the one who wants it to happen. And I can say, I'm not sure where that'll go at this point. Is that going to lead to priesthood? Is it going to lead somewhere else? Not sure yet. But for all the ways that the Lord has drawn me out of myself and into a community of love, drawn me towards him, towards that realization that I can rely upon him, and for all the ways that the Lord has kind of arranged things so that such a wonderful life can be here for all of us, I say, praise be Jesus Christ.